The jungle was alive with sound. Insects sang, birds called from high branches, and the steady hum of life filled the air. Ryan walked carefully along the narrow path, his boots sinking into damp soil. He was not the leader of a grand expedition. He was simply a man with a love for history, carrying a pack and a notebook, searching for something that most people would dismiss as a dream. For years he had studied the stories of the Maya, their temples and their carvings. Old legends spoke of a tomb deep in the jungle, a place of emerald fire and gold that shined like the sun. Scholars had called it a myth. Treasure hunters had chased it but returned with nothing. Ryan believed the tomb was real. His belief gave him strength as he moved through the thick green world of vines and trees. Beside him walked Lonnie, a local guide who knew the forest better than anyone. She carried a simple machete, cutting away vines that blocked their path. Her sharp eyes noticed every track, every broken branch, every sign of animals passing. She had heard of the tomb from her grandparents, who told the tale as a warning. Yet she followed Ryan, curious to see if the stories held truth. The air grew heavier as they pushed deeper. Light from the sun was filtered into soft green by the high canopy. Sweat rolled down Ryan's face, but he pressed on, his notebook safe in his pack. Lonnie stopped suddenly and raised her hand. Ryan froze. In front of them, almost hidden by roots and plants, was stone. Not natural rock, but carved stone, shaped by hands long ago. They cleared away moss and vines, revealing a wall covered in symbols. Ryan's breath caught in his chest. The carvings showed figures standing before a flame that glowed like a star. Around them were strange shapes that did not look human. Tall figures with long arms and narrow heads. Above them was the sun, shining on golden patterns that twisted into the shape of fire. "This is it," Ryan whispered, his voice trembling. "The tomb of emerald fire." Lonnie frowned. "The old people said it was cursed. That green light is not for us. We should not stay here." But curiosity was stronger in Ryan than fear. He traced the carvings with his hand, feeling the deep lines worn by time. He noticed that one part of the wall was different. A stone panel stood out smoother than the rest. With effort, the two of them pushed against it. Slowly, with the sound of stone grinding, the panel slid open. A dark passage stretched inside, cool air rushing out like a sigh from the earth. They lit their lanterns and stepped into the passage. The air smelled of age, dry and untouched for centuries. The walls were covered with more carvings, telling a story in silent pictures. They showed the Maya people kneeling before the green flame. Above them, the tall figures returned, carrying strange objects that looked like machines. The pictures showed both worship and fear. Ryan studied the story as they walked. "The Maya must have seen these beings as gods," he said quietly. "But look closer. The flame was not theirs. It was guarded, kept hidden. Perhaps the Maya were only the keepers of something greater." Lonnie's eyes narrowed. "Then who gave them the flame?" Ryan had no answer. At the end of the passage, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. The lantern light spread across walls of stone and gold. The room was filled with statues of warriors, their eyes set with emeralds. In the center stood a great altar, carved from a single block of stone. On top of it burned a flame, but it was not fire as humans knew it. The emerald flame glowed without smoke, without heat. It shimmered with an otherworldly light, casting green reflections on the golden walls. The air hummed as if alive, and a faint vibration ran through the floor. Ryan stepped forward in awe, his heart racing. The flame had burned for centuries, untouched and unbroken. "This is not possible," he whispered. Lonnie crossed her arms tightly. "It should not be here. Fire cannot last forever," yet it did. The flame bent and twisted as if aware of their presence. Ryan felt drawn to it, his mind filling with questions. Was it a natural force or something left behind by beings beyond Earth? He thought of the carvings, the tall figures who came from the sky. Could this be their gift or their curse? Around the chamber, golden masks hung on the walls, each one fused with a shard of green crystal. Their eyes glittered like they were alive. Ryan touched one mask gently and the flame flickered brighter. A pulse of green light ran through the chamber. Lonnie stepped back in alarm. "You should not touch it. This place is not for us," but Ryan could not stop. The tomb was real. The stories were true. And here, in the heart of the jungle, lay a secret that had waited for centuries. He did not yet know the danger it carried, nor the eyes that would soon turn toward Earth. All he knew was that the tomb of emerald fire had been found, and nothing would ever be the same again. The chamber glowed brighter as Ryan's hand brushed against the golden mask. The emerald flame danced higher, casting long green shadows across the walls. The hum that filled the air seemed stronger now, as though the tomb itself had awakened from its long sleep. Lonnie's face was pale in the green glow. She gripped her machete tightly, though she knew a blade was useless against whatever force lived inside this place. Her voice was low but firm. "Ryan, we must leave. This is not safe. The fire knows we are here." Ryan shook his head, his eyes fixed on the flame. "Do you see it, Lonnie? This is energy like nothing on Earth. It is not burning wood or oil. It does not fade. It is alive in some way. If the Maya guarded this, then they must have understood something greater than we can imagine." Lonnie glanced around at the masks. Each golden face seemed to watch them, green crystals glinting like living eyes. She felt a cold shiver along her spine. She wanted to turn and run back through the tunnel, back into the sunlight, but something stronger held her there. Curiosity. The same curiosity that burned so fiercely in Ryan. Ryan moved closer to the altar. He took out his notebook and began sketching quickly. The carvings on the altar showed not only Maya warriors but also the tall figures again. They were drawn with strange objects in their hands, objects shaped like rods and circles, tools unlike anything made by humans. At the top of the carvings was the flame, always burning, always central. The Maya recorded this as if it were a story. Ryan said, "Look here. These tall figures arrive from the sky. The people kneel, offering gold and jewels. And then here, the flame is placed inside this very altar." Lonnie frowned. Why would beings from the sky give such power to the Maya? Ryan traced the carvings with his finger. Maybe it was not a gift. Maybe it was left behind, or hidden. As he spoke, the flame flared again. A beam of green light shot upward from the altar, hitting the ceiling where a large circular carving rested. Dust fell as the circle began to shift. Slowly, the ceiling moved, opening like a stone flower. From the opening came a shaft of light, but it was not sunlight. It was the same emerald glow, pouring down and filling the chamber with brilliance. Lonnie shielded her eyes. "You are waking it, Ryan. Stop before it is too late." But Ryan's heart pounded with excitement. "Do you see this?" The flame connects to something above. This tomb is more than a resting place. It is a machine, or maybe a beacon. The word lingered in the air. Beacon. Outside the tomb, the jungle stirred. Birds that had been singing fell silent. Monkeys leapt from trees, fleeing into the distance. The emerald light shot through cracks in the stone and escaped into the sky, a column of brilliance piercing the canopy. High above, unseen to human eyes, the light traveled beyond the clouds and far into space. Ryan and Lonnie stood at the altar, unaware of how far the signal had gone. They only felt the change in the air. The ground trembled lightly, and the masks along the walls vibrated with a low tone, as if they were speaking in a language too old to understand. Lonnie grabbed Ryan's arm. "Enough, we must go before this place swallows us." Ryan hesitated but finally nodded. He placed the mask back on the wall and stepped away from the altar. The flame lowered itself, becoming calm once more, though its glow did not fade. The hum in the air softened but did not vanish. It was as if the tomb had gone back to sleep, but not completely. They left the chamber and returned to the tunnel, their lanterns shaking in their hands. The carvings on the walls looked different now. The tall figures seemed more alive, their carved eyes sharper in the lantern light. The Maya warriors looked less like worshippers and more like prisoners. Ryan could not shake the feeling that the flame had shown him only part of its story. At the entrance, daylight blinded them for a moment. The jungle was quiet in an unsettling way. Not a single bird called. Not a single insect hummed. Ryan looked up and froze. Through a break in the canopy, he saw the emerald light still rising into the sky like a pillar. It was not fading. "Someone will see it," he whispered. Lonnie looked at him sharply. "Who do you think will see it?" Ryan could not answer. He only knew the light had gone farther than they could imagine. He felt a strange certainty that the tomb was never meant for human discovery. The Maya had hidden it for a reason. The carvings, the masks, the flame, they were all warnings. And he had ignored them. As night fell, the emerald light continued to shine. Far above Earth, beyond the reach of human eyes, something stirred in the darkness of space. Metallic forms silent for centuries began to move. Their sensors caught the signal. Their systems awakened, and they turned their attention toward the small blue world below. Back in the jungle, Ryan and Lonnie set up camp near the tomb. Ryan wrote in his notebook, his hands shaking but his mind racing. He could not bring himself to leave, not yet. Lonnie sat close to the fire, her eyes on the sky where the green pillar cut into the stars. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Both felt the same heavy truth. The tomb was not a treasure. It was a call, and someone or something had already answered. The campfire burned low, its smoke rising into the night air. Lonnie sat close to the flames, sharpening her machete in slow strokes, her eyes fixed on the emerald light still glowing in the sky. The light had not faded since it first appeared, and it gave the stars a strange green tint. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "This is not for us. We woke something that was meant to sleep." Ryan sat across from her with his notebook open, pages already filled with sketches and notes. His eyes were tired, but they burned with excitement. "Lonnie, do you not see it? This is proof of something greater. Humanity has always asked if we are alone. Now we know the answer. The Maya were touched by beings not from Earth, and we have found the key to understanding it." Lonnie frowned. "And if those beings return, what then? You treat this like a discovery." "I see it as a warning." Her words hung in the air. The jungle was silent, but in that silence there was weight, as though the forest itself listened. The next morning, Ryan returned to the tomb. Lonnie followed, though her steps were heavy with caution. Inside the chamber, the emerald flame burned as steadily as before. It seemed to pulse softly like a heartbeat. Ryan studied the masks again. He noticed fine lines carved into the green crystals, almost like writing. He leaned close, tracing the patterns with his eyes. "These are not just decorations. This is language, maybe even instructions." Lonnie stood at the entrance of the chamber, unwilling to go near the altar. The Maya carved their warnings on the walls. "That should be enough. Why do you keep digging deeper?" "Because curiosity is what makes us human," Ryan replied without looking at her. Curiosity built ships that crossed oceans. It built machines that reached the skies. And now it has brought us here. If we walk away, the truth dies with us. If we stay, we might change the future. As he spoke, Ryan placed his notebook on the altar and set his lantern beside it. He gently touched the carvings again. The emerald flame brightened in response as though it heard him. One of the golden masks glowed faintly, its crystal eyes shining with new light. Ryan's notebook vibrated on the stone. Words appeared on the page without his hand moving. Symbols, strange and curved, filled the lines in glowing green ink. Ryan stared in shock. "It is writing by itself." "The flame is trying to speak." Lonnie gasped and stepped back. "That is not speaking. That is control. You must stop," but Ryan's heart raced. "Do you not see? It wants to share knowledge. The Maya could not understand it fully, but maybe we can." The symbols shifted into shapes that resembled stars, lines connecting them into maps. Ryan realized the flame was showing constellations, routes through space. At the center of the map was Earth, marked with a glowing green circle. Around it were paths leading outward to distant points. "This is not just a flame," Ryan whispered. "It is a library. A record of where they came from, and maybe a guide to where they went." Lonnie shook her head firmly. "And you think they left this here as a gift?" "No, they left it as a trap. The Maya knew that. That is why they sealed it." Before Ryan could answer, the chamber trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the emerald flame flared higher. The map vanished from his notebook, replaced with a single symbol, a circle with 3 lines cutting across it. Ryan felt a chill. The symbol pulsed like a warning. Lonnie grabbed his arm. "It is sending messages, Ryan. You said it yourself, it is a beacon. Someone will come. We must leave before they arrive." But Ryan pulled his arm free. "If someone comes, then all the more reason to understand this. We cannot face what we do not know. If these beings once ruled here, we must learn their secrets before they return." His voice echoed in the chamber, bold yet uncertain. The flame settled again, its glow steady. The green eyes of the masks dimmed, but Ryan felt no relief. He knew the message had already gone out. That night he could not sleep. He wrote by the fire, copying the symbols from memory. He tried to match them to known languages, searching for meaning. Lonnie watched him, silent and weary. She thought of her grandparents' stories of warnings passed through generations. The stories had not been tales. They had been truth. High above Earth, machines stirred. They were vast and silent, built of metal and stone, waiting in the darkness between stars. The emerald signal reached them. filling their dormant systems with life. Eyes that had been closed for centuries opened once more. In the jungle, Ryan closed his notebook with shaking hands. He looked at Lonnie, his voice quiet but steady. "We cannot go back, not now. The world must know. Humanity must be ready." Lonnie met his gaze, her face full of worry. "Or humanity will call down something it cannot fight." The fire crackled between them, and the emerald light still burned above. Curiosity had unlocked the tomb. Now it was only a matter of time before the answer came from the stars. The night sky above the jungle no longer looked the same. The emerald beam rising from the tomb pierced the heavens like a spear of light. It was steady, unbroken, and unnatural. Villagers in distant towns whispered about it, some calling it a sign from the gods, others calling it a curse. But far beyond Earth, in the silence of space, the signal had reached watchers who had been waiting for centuries. On the third night after the awakening, Ryan and Lonnie heard a new sound in the forest. It was not the cry of an animal or the rustle of leaves. It was a low hum, deep and steady, like the sound of a massive machine moving in the distance. The ground vibrated lightly beneath their feet. Lonnie rose from her seat by the campfire, her eyes fixed on the sky. "Something is coming," she whispered. Ryan followed her gaze. The stars above seemed to shift. A cluster of lights grew larger, moving slowly but surely. They were not stars at all. They were ships. The lights descended silently until 3 shapes hung in the sky above the jungle. They were unlike anything human hands had built. Smooth and silver, with edges that curved like flowing water, the ships floated with no sound of engines. Green light pulsed along their surfaces, the same color as the flame within the tomb. Ryan's breath caught in awe. They answered. They really came. Lonnie stepped back, fear plain on her face. "No, Ryan, they did not come as friends. They came to take what belongs to them." The ships hovered for hours as if scanning the land below. Then beams of emerald light reached down, cutting through the canopy. Trees glowed and shimmered as though turned to glass. Animals fled in every direction, screaming into the night. The beams narrowed until they locked onto the tomb itself. The ground shuddered as the stone structure responded with a low rumble. Ryan and Lonnie ran toward the entrance. Inside, the emerald flame leapt wildly, no longer calm. The golden masks lit up in sequence, their crystal eyes burning bright. The carvings on the walls glowed as if alive, showing the tall figures once more. This time the carvings moved like shadows, replaying the arrival of the beings who had once come from the sky. Lonnie pressed her back against the wall, her machete trembling in her grip. "They were here before, Ryan. This is their place. We are intruders." Ryan's voice was quiet, filled with both fear and wonder. "Or perhaps we are their test." As he spoke, the ceiling of the chamber cracked open. Green light poured down in thick rays. From above descended 3 figures, tall and slender, their forms encased in shining silver. Their faces were hidden by smooth masks of metal, their eyes glowing faint green. They moved with calm precision, neither hurried nor hesitant. The flame bent toward them as though it recognized its masters. The chamber filled with a hum that pressed against Ryan's chest, heavy and deep. One of the figures stepped forward, raising a long staff that glowed with crystal light. Its voice was not speech but vibration, a sound that shook the air. Yet in Ryan's mind the meaning was clear. "You have awakened what was not yours." Ryan swallowed hard. His voice cracked but held steady. "We are not thieves. We are seekers. Humanity deserves to know what this is." The figure tilted its head slightly as though studying him. The second figure stepped closer, pointing its staff toward Ryan. This world was never meant to hold the flame. The Maya were only keepers, bound by oath. "You break that oath." Lonnie gripped Ryan's arm tightly. "Do not speak to them. They do not see us as equals." But Ryan's curiosity was stronger than fear. "If you left this here, then you must have known someone would find it. Why hide such power in our world?" The third figure lowered its staff. Its voice carried sorrow, though still mechanical in tone. "The flame is not gift. It is weapon. Your kind cannot control it." The flame flared high, filling the chamber with brilliant green. For a moment, Ryan saw visions in the light. Cities of stone and gold rising to the sky. Armies of tall figures wielding rods of energy. Then destruction. Worlds burning, skies torn apart. The emerald fire consumed all in its path. Ryan fell to his knees, gasping. He understood now why the Maya sealed the tomb, yet even as fear filled his heart, a spark of determination burned within him. Humanity had faced wars, disasters, and hardships, yet it had always survived. Could they not also learn to face this? The first figure spoke again. We will reclaim the flame. Your kind must forget. Rian forced himself to stand. No, we cannot forget. We will not. Humanity has a right to its future. The green light flickered at his words as if responding to him, not to the tall figures. The aliens turned their glowing eyes toward the flame, then back to Ryan. For the first time, a trace of hesitation moved through their stance. Lonnie pulled Ryan back. You are challenging them with words, but they do not understand human spirit. They only see power. Outside, the ship shifted in the sky. More beams of emerald light cut through the forest, marking their control over the land. Yet inside the tomb, the flame leaned toward Rian, its glow warmer than before. The tall figures raised their staffs as one. If humanity will not surrender, then humanity must be judged. The chamber shook violently, dust and stone falling from the ceiling. The emerald flame roared higher, caught between two wills, one ancient and alien, the other stubborn and human. The visitors had returned, and the test of humanity had begun. The tomb shook as if the earth itself resisted the presence of the tall silver beings. The emerald flame swirled wildly, caught between alien command and human defiance. Ryan stood firm before the altar, his heart pounding, yet his spirit unshaken. Lonnie clutched his arm, pulling him back, but he refused to move. The lead figure lowered its staff, and green sparks burst from the crystal tip. The hum grew louder, pressing against their chests like a heavy weight. The voice filled their minds again. The flame does not belong to you. Stand aside or be consumed. Ryan raised his chin, his eyes locked on the glowing eyes of the alien. We are not stepping aside. This is our world. If the Maya once kept this flame, then so will we. Humanity has endured much. We can endure this too. The words were bold, but his hands trembled at his sides. He had no weapon, no power beyond courage and faith. Still, the emerald flame flared brighter as though it listened to his words. The green light bent toward him, not the aliens. Lonnie whispered fiercely, Rian, you cannot fight them. They are beyond us. Ryan shook his head. Perhaps, but they do not understand what it means to be human. We do not give up. The three figures lifted their staffs together. A wave of green energy shot across the chamber. Statues crumbled, walls cracked, and dust filled the air. Yet the altar remained unbroken, the flame untamed. It burned higher, pushing back against the alien energy. In that chaos, Ryan noticed something strange. The golden masks on the walls pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Each time his courage swelled, the crystals glowed brighter. He stepped forward, reaching for one of the masks. The moment his hand touched it, warmth rushed through his body. The mask hummed against his palm, and green light surged into his chest. He gasped but did not let go. The mask seemed to recognize him, as if the flame had chosen him. The aliens paused. Their glowing eyes flickered in confusion. One of them spoke, its tone sharper. It accepts you. That is not possible. Ryan placed the mask over his face. Vision changed at once. He saw streams of green light flowing like rivers across the chamber. He saw how the flame connected to the walls, the floor, even to the jungle outside. And he saw the aliens not as gods, but as intruders who had once enslaved worlds with the emerald fire. Lonnie stared in shock. Ryan, what have you done? Rian's voice was deeper now, carrying a strange echo. I see what they fear. The flame is not theirs alone. It responds to will. They control it with order, but humans can guide it with spirit. The aliens raised their staffs again, this time aiming directly at him. Emerald bolts shot forward, striking the altar. But Rian lifted his hand and the flame surged in answer. A shield of green light burst forth, blocking the attack. The chamber roared like thunder. Lonnie shielded her eyes from the brightness. She had never seen anything so powerful. Yet she also saw Ryan stumble under the strain. Sweat rolled down his face behind the mask. His body shook, but he stood tall. You see? Ryan called out, his voice steady despite the weight. Humans do not surrender. We fight, we adapt, we endure. The flame responded again, stronger than before. The aliens staggered back as the green shield grew, pushing them toward the ceiling crack. Their staffs flickered, dimming against the rising power of human will. But the lead figure steadied itself. You cannot win. The flame destroys all. It will consume you too. Ryan took a step forward, the emerald light flowing from the mask like fire in his veins. Maybe, but unlike you, we do not fear sacrifice. That is why we will survive. For a moment the chamber fell silent except for the hum of the flame. The aliens lowered their staffs slightly, uncertain. They had not expected resistance, not from humans. They had seen the Maya kneel, but now they saw defiance where obedience once ruled. Outside, the jungle trembled as beams from the hovering ships shifted wildly. Birds burst into the air and trees fell under sudden blasts of light. Yet the pillar of emerald energy from the tomb did not collapse. Instead, it grew stronger, brighter, reaching higher into the night sky. Ryan finally pulled the mask from his face, collapsing to his knees. The flame settled, calmer but still bright. Lonnie rushed to his side, helping him up. His body was weak, but his eyes glowed with determination. "We cannot let them take it," he whispered. "This flame can destroy, yes, but it can also protect. If we master it, we may stand against them." Lonnie shook her head, fear and pride battling in her heart. "You speak like a leader of warriors, but we are only two. How can we face them?" Ryan looked at the altar, then at the flame that seemed to wait for him. "Because humans are never only two. One voice becomes many. One spark becomes fire. That is how we have always survived." The aliens retreated into the ceiling crack, their glowing eyes fixed on Ryan. Their voices echoed in unison. "Your defiance will bring judgment. We will return." The chamber fell silent again. The emerald flame flickered softly like a heart still beating. Ryan leaned against Lonnie, his body drained but his spirit alive. For the first time, the tall silver beings had been pushed back. Humanity had shown its will. The test was far from over, but in that moment, deep within the tomb, human defiance burned brighter than fear. The jungle groaned under the weight of a battle it had never known. The silver ships in the sky pulsed with emerald light, their beams sweeping across the trees like knives of fire. Whole sections of forest collapsed, glowing briefly as though turned to crystal before shattering into dust. Animals fled in waves, their cries carried far into the night. Inside the tomb, Ryan leaned against the altar, his breath shallow. The golden mask he had worn now lay beside him, still glowing faintly. Lonnie crouched at his side, holding his shoulder firmly. "You cannot use it again," she warned. "It will tear you apart." Ryan's eyes were tired, yet still fierce. "If we do nothing, they will strip this world bare. The flame listens to us, not them. That is our only chance." The chamber trembled as another blast from above struck the earth. Dust rained from the ceiling and cracks spread across the walls. The emerald flame flared in response, as though angry at the attack. Ryan studied the carvings glowing faintly on the walls. They showed not only warriors and tall figures, but also tools, simple objects, ropes, wheels, torches. His eyes widened. "Lonnie, look." The Maya recorded not just fear. They recorded how they resisted. Lonnie frowned. "Resisted? How can ropes and torches fight against ships that fly in the sky?" Ryan pointed at the altar. "The flame responds to will. Not to machines, not to logic. The Maya used what they had, and so can we. We must not think like them. We must think like humans." Lonnie hesitated, then nodded. She had seen enough to know that fear would not save them. "Then we fight with what we know." Together, they left the chamber, stepping into the open air. The sky blazed with emerald beams, and the ground shook as the ships drew closer. Ryan lifted the glowing mask high, and the flame inside the tomb surged upward, linking with the pillar of light that reached the stars. The ships faltered, their beams scattering against the new surge of power. But the effort drained him. His arms trembled, and he nearly dropped the mask. Lonnie caught it, her eyes hard with determination. "If the flame listens to spirit, then it will listen to mine as well." She pressed the mask to her face. At once the world changed for her too. She saw the jungle not as shadow and leaf, but as rivers of energy. The trees pulsed with green veins, the rivers glowed like liquid light. She gasped, her heart racing. "It connects to everything." "Then use it," Ryan urged. "Guide it as the Maya once did." Lanny raised her hand, and the trees bent as though answering her command. Vines shot upward, glowing green, wrapping around one of the descending beams. The energy sputtered, tangled by the living ropes. The ship above wavered, its steady hum broken for the first time. From the tomb, the emerald flame roared higher, feeding on their defiance. The jungle itself seemed alive, fighting alongside them. Birds circled in glowing flocks. Vines lashed out like whips, and the ground cracked open, spilling green fire. The aliens responded quickly. Their ships released smaller drones, silver shapes darting through the trees with sharp beams of light. They cut through branches and stone with ease, moving like predators. Rian grabbed a broken piece of golden statue from the chamber. Its surface hummed with faint energy. He swung it like a club, striking one of the drones as it flew too close. The crystal inside the fragment flared, and the drone shattered in a burst of sparks. He stared at the fragment amazed. Even broken relics carry the flame. We can use them. Soon the ground was littered with glowing shards of old statues and masks. Rian and Lani gathered them, wielding them like weapons. Each strike released bursts of emerald light, enough to shatter the smaller machines. The fight was brutal, yet it filled them with strength. Above, the tall silver figures reappeared, descending once more. They stood at the edge of the tomb, staffs raised, their voices echoing. This world is not yours to command. You misuse what you cannot control. But Lani's voice rang clear. No, we guide it with heart. That is why it obeys us. The aliens unleashed a final wave of energy, but this time the flame rose like a shield, spreading across the entire jungle. Trees glowed, rivers shimmered, the very air burned green. The ships above staggered as the shield struck them, forcing them back into the clouds. The battle raged for hours, a clash of machines against willpower, of alien order against human spirit. Rian fought until his body gave out, his arms heavy, his breath gone. Yet even as he fell to his knees, he saw the impossible. One of the silver ships cracked under the force of the green shield. Its smooth surface split and fragments fell burning into the forest. The aliens withdrew at last. Their ships rose higher into the sky, beams fading, hums quieting. They did not speak, but their retreat was clear. The jungle stilled again, broken trees smoking in the emerald glow. Rian collapsed beside the altar, barely able to lift his head. Lani knelt beside him, pulling the mask from her face. Both were exhausted, but the flame at the altar burned brighter than ever. We fought them back, Rian whispered. Not with their power, but with ours. Lani placed her hand on his. It was not machines that saved us. It was courage. The emerald flame pulsed gently as though in agreement. For the first time, it seemed less like a weapon and more like a companion, waiting to see what humanity would choose to do next. The battle was not the end. It was the beginning. The jungle was quiet again, but it was not the same jungle that had stood before. Broken trees lay across the ground, their trunks glowing faintly with emerald sparks. The earth was scarred where beams of light had struck, leaving blackened craters. Smoke drifted slowly upward, and the night sky still glowed faint green from the pillar of flame that rose out of the tomb. Rian lay on the altar steps, his body weak, his breaths shallow. Yet his eyes were open, watching the emerald flame that burned steady above him. It had not died even after the battle. In fact, it seemed stronger than ever, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. Beside him, Lani sat with the golden mask on her lap, her face tired but her spirit unbroken. They will return, Lani said softly. Her voice was steady, not filled with fear, but with truth. The ships were forced back, not destroyed. They will come again, and next time they will not underestimate us. Rian nodded weakly. I know, but now we know too. We understand what this flame can be. It is not only weapon. It is symbol, and symbols are what keep humans standing. The emerald light shimmered in agreement as if it understood their words. For hours they rested, gathering their strength. When dawn came, golden sunlight pierced the jungle canopy, mixing with the green glow of the flame. For the first time, the two lights blended together, gold of the Maya and emerald of the flame shining side by side. Rian slowly stood, his legs trembling. He placed both hands on the altar. This is not only a tomb, it is a message. The Maya tried to guard it with silence. The aliens tried to claim it with fear. But humanity must carry it forward with courage. Lani frowned. What message will you send, Rian? The whole world will see this light soon. You must choose carefully. Rian thought of all the ages of history. He thought of explorers who sailed into unknown seas, of builders who raised cities from stone, of dreamers who reached for the sky. Every step forward had come with risk. Every victory had been born from courage. Humans were never the strongest or the fastest, but they endured. That was what made them different. He took the golden mask from Lani and lifted it toward the flame. The light flowed into it, filling the crystal eyes with a deep glow. Rian closed his eyes and spoke with a voice firm and clear. This world belongs to humanity. We will protect it. We will endure. To those who hear this light, know this truth. We are not afraid. The flame blazed brighter, sending a new wave of emerald light skyward. The pillar of green energy shifted. It no longer carried only the old alien signal. It now carried Ryan's words woven into the very light. His voice became part of the beacon, reaching into the sky, crossing through the stars. Lonnie watched in awe. "You have changed the signal. It is no longer their warning. It is our call." "Yes," Ryan said, "a call that tells the galaxy who we are. Not servants, not prisoners, but people who stand." As the day passed, the world began to notice. Pilots flying high above saw the green light stretching into space. Satellites captured images of the beam rising from the jungle. Scientists argued, leaders panicked, and people everywhere looked upward with both fear and hope. The story of the emerald flame spread like fire, and humanity realized that it was no longer hidden. The galaxy now knew Earth had spoken. Far away, beyond human sight, the silver ships gathered again. They circled in silence, watching the change signal. Some wanted to strike immediately, to silence the defiant voice, but others hesitated. The flame had chosen humanity, and that troubled them. They had ruled with fear for ages, yet this small world had resisted with will alone. Back in the jungle, Ryan and Lonnie stood side by side at the mouth of the tomb. The emerald flame burned behind them, no longer wild but steady. Like a guardian's watchful eye, Ryan looked at the horizon where sunlight touched the forest with warmth. "Do you think we can win, Lonnie?" he asked quietly. She smiled faintly, though her eyes carried worry. "Win or lose does not matter. What matters is that we fight, that we never kneel. That is what makes us human." Ryan nodded. "Then let this flame be more than weapon. Let it be a promise." The jungle wind carried their words, and the emerald fire pulsed once more, brighter than before. It was no longer just the tomb of emerald fire. It was a beacon of defiance, a shield of courage, and a promise that humanity would not fade quietly into the dark. The green light reached far, shining across the stars. Some who saw it would fear. Others would prepare. But all would know this. Humanity had spoken, and its voice burned bright.